let's go to Jim Crow Joe for a second, okay? Let's take it back to what truly matters. Jimothy Crow Joe. I'm gonna pee.
President Biden.
A few moments about what's going on our college campuses here. We've all seen the images, and they put to the test two fundamental American principles. Excuse me. The first is the right to free speech and for people to peacefully assemble and make their voices heard. The second is the rule of law. Both must be upheld. We are not an authoritarian nation where we silence people or squash dissent. The American people are heard. In fact, peaceful protest is in the best tradition of how Americans respond to consequential issues. But, neither are we a lawless country. We are a civil society, and order must prevail. Throughout our history, we've often faced moments like this because we are a big, diverse, free-thinking, and freedom-loving nation. In moments like this, there are always those who rush in to score political points. But this isn't a moment for politics. It's a moment for clarity. So let me be clear. Peaceful protest in America. Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is. It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest. Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear in people is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Dissent is essential to democracy, but dissent must never lead to disorder.
That was a banger line. The dissent must never lead to disorder is like directly ripped from, I feel like it is a direct like Donald Trump line if Donald Trump could get that poetic. You know what I mean? This is like dissent must never lead to disorder is just straight up fucking 1984 shit. Okay. Oh yeah. This is a great take from Lesby Writes. Rosa Parks was supposed to be in the back of the bus by law. And she said, no, I will sit in the front. She violated the law. And that law was unjust, which is why she should have sat in the back of the bus. Don't forget, I also said that I don't want my children growing up in the racial jungle of desegregated America. That's why I, as a Democratic senator from the great state of Delaware, did all I could to stop forced busing from occurring. That's right. That's not Rosa's bus. Get off the bus, Rosa. Rosa, get off the bus. You better go back to the back of the bus, Rosa. Don't do it now. Don't do the Montgomery bus sit-ins for 300 plus days. Dissent must not cause disorder. It is the law, after all. Are you reading something, Asmont? No, I'm not. I'm preaching to the choir over here. Everybody knows. I, Jim Crow Joe, looked at the civil rights movement and I bravely and boldly declared, don't do it. Or if you're going to do it, don't do it in a way that causes disorder.
Or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester and their college education. Look, it's basically a matter of fairness. It's a matter of what's right. There's the right to protest, but not the right to cause chaos. People have the right to get an education, the right to get a degree, the right to walk across the campus safely without fear of being attacked. But let's be clear about this as well.
Yeah, no, that's right, which is why we should kill the students who are being attacked in order to save them, of course. Let me tell you, Jack, the chancellor of UCLA said it best. When the beautiful, brave, bold defenders of Israel stormed the disgusting, anti-Semitic, pro-Palestinian tents in the encampment, as those students were dancing and singing Kumbaya, the brave defenders of Israel stormed that encampment and beat the shit out of those students. And I thought to myself, that's wonderful. but we got to bring in the state.
There should be no place on any campus, no place in America for anti-Semitism or threats of violence against Jewish students.
I mean, he ain't wrong. The problem is, that's not what's going on in these campuses, or at least in the encampments.
There is no place for hate speech or violence of any kind, whether it's anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or discrimination against Arab Americans. It's simply wrong. There's no place for racism in America. It's all wrong. It's un-American. I understand people have strong feelings and deep convictions. In America, we respect the right and protect the right for them to express that. But it doesn't mean anything goes.
It's just funny because he was alive back then. You know what I mean? He's so fucking old. He was there and old enough to give a quote. You know what I mean? Like, he was old enough to be like, yeah, fuck these these peaceful protesters, Jack. They're pinkos. I hate them. Oh, it's so funny.
It needs to be done without violence, without destruction, without hate, and within the law. You know, make no mistake, as president, I will always defend free speech. And I will always be just as strong in standing up for the rule of law. That's my responsibility to you, the American.
He didn't just say, I'm stroking my shit right now. He said, I got oil on my shit. I'm stroking it ferociously. That's what he said. Yeah, he wrote all of that.
People, my obligation to the Constitution. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, have the protests forced you to reconsider any of the policies with regard to the region?
No. Thank you.
Mr. President, do you think the National Guard should intervene?
No.
Mr. President, do you agree with what the students are calling for?
Mr. President, the former president said.
All right, President Biden giving some comments about the unrest we've seen on college campuses, talking about how these protests bring an odds to important American principles. One, of course, the right of free speech to demonstrate peacefully, and the other one, of course, the right of students to feel safe and secure.
Wait. Yeah, one, a fundamental American fucking value. Two, some shit we made up to violently suppress that fundamental American value. I love that. He's like, yeah, one fundamental American value enshrined in the Constitution, perhaps the most important one. The second, just some shit we made up to fucking kill the people exercising that.
Secure in an academic establishment. He did, on his way out of the room, also say that he didn't think the National Guard should be dispatched to college campuses, which, of course, has been going on in Texas, for one, as well as other law enforcement agencies in other states. Let's talk a bit about this before we go back to the Trump trial. Dana Bash, I know that there has been criticism of President Biden for waiting until today, quite late in all of this, to give a statement. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, we have heard from his spokespeople yesterday at the White House podium, and the deputy press secretary before that, since the unrest really started. But there have been calls, not just from his political opponents, but from his political supporters, to go out and to say something that gives clarity and a very solid argument for what is okay and what is not okay. And it's hard to imagine that anybody heard that and didn't hear a very, very clear argument that, as you said, Jake, you can be somebody who opposes any policy, and you should have the right. That is a fundamental right in the United States of America.
Dude, this is such a funny, come on, dude. They're literally showing just the direct, definitional, clear-cut violation of the rights that they claim to care about. Like, the timing of the fucking rubber bullet being fired in the background is hilarious. Like, you're dude, what's up with our parents? Well, like, I mean, my parents are Turkish, so it's different, obviously. They don't fuck with this shit at all. Like, they are very much pro-Palestine, okay? But it is, like, how are you like an American parent, you know, over the age of like 50, and you're watching this and not going like, the fuck? What do you mean? Like, you're saying you care about free speech while I'm watching the opposite happening, and you're seemingly justifying it. Like, what's that about?
But you can't intimidate. You can't do anything to stop people from going to classes or from feeling unsafe. And it is complicated. It is something that is steeped in nuance, but it's also something that a leader can and should, and I think probably in this case did, be.
Yeah, okay, Dana Fash. Obviously, you like what he had to say. We saw your fucking dumbass coverage.
Able to clarify and make easier to understand for the American people. That's what a leader is supposed to do.
And let's also be clear, we went way past nuance with the violence that we've seen the last 2 days. I mean, and that is, I think, the distinction that President Biden was trying to make.
Yeah, those things are bad. And it's great that they aren't happening. Yeah, those things are bad. A violent suppression of free speech would be really bad and unconscionable, which is why I'm saying that the president, the president capitulating to such anti-democratic interests from a select few rich people and I guess like people that pay not tuition, but people that donate to the fucking college campuses, their demands have been met. And my own demands as Dana Bash has been met. And I think that that's great, actually, even though it goes against what I was just saying earlier about the free speech thing, which was something that is a fundamental value.
I mean, breaking into the building at Columbia, the images that we saw out of UCLA, we were just showing some of them on the screens here. There have been all these conversations about these very, in many cases, terrible signs and messages that have been on these college campuses in terms of anti-Semitism. But the escalation in recent days, I think, is clearly what motivated the president to come out now, even after, I will say, every morning I have gotten up looking at the previous day. What did the president say about this? Because I've been waking up and covering at 5 in the morning these protests breaking out on these college campuses. And the answer has always been, until this afternoon, well, no, here's some paper, here's some off-camera comments from the administration. Clearly, they felt like they needed to finally say something. And I think you could really hear, you know, for President Biden, and Dana, you were talking about this as we listened to him, you could hear the conviction in his voice in this speech. Yep.
So when you were doing your show this morning, Casey, 5 a.m. East Coast time is 2 a.m. Pacific.
You could really hear it. You could really hear the conviction coming from Joe Brandon when he was like, "We should kill the students." When he said dissent must not lead the disorder, bro, that is like that is George Orwell. Okay, I mean, I'm sorry, that is such a fucking. I feel like that's a bar directly ripped from 1984.
Pacific time, and it was at 1 a.m. Pacific time, I believe, that law enforcement went into the encampment at the campus of UCLA in Los Angeles to clear out the encampment there, which obviously is generally not a smooth and easy process. Josh Campbell is there, our law enforcement correspondent and a former FBI official.
Oh my God, we brought our resident bootlicker on to talk about how wonderful the cops were and how restrained they were, and then I suspect he's gonna fucking talk about the how fucking nasty the ground is now because of the students and not because of the cops that beat the shit out of them.
Looking at well, that does not look ready for graduation. I'll just say that, Josh Campbell.
No, it certainly doesn't. And, you know, after that clash that we saw last night with law enforcement here ultimately deciding that it was time to go in, they did this in steps. They issued an unlawful assembly order and then asked this crowd to disperse, and then they went in. The California Highway Patrol, there were some skirmishes. We talked to some of the officers inside who said that they had things that were thrown at them. I saw one officer who was covered in the powder from a fire extinguisher, but no injuries being reported at this point. We are learning, and I'll tell you as we kind of zoom in about what's left here. You can see behind me, there were 250 protesters approximately in this camp. That's what the CHP tells us. They brought in 250 officers of their own. So essentially one officer for one protester, bringing all of those individuals out. We are told that 132 of those protesters were taken into placed under arrest. We're waiting to see what those charges actually are. Now, overnight, we started to get a sense that this was about to go down because late yesterday, And this gets to, what the president's point about lawful versus unlawful. The university itself, up to the point of last night, didn't ask the police to come in and actually clear this camp. But that all changed. We started seeing resources come in. We saw the FBI field office, which is about a mile from here, essentially turn into a staging point for dozens and dozens of law enforcement officers. Multiple prisoner buses were brought in. And as you mentioned, Jake, just around 1 a.m. time, we are a little earlier than that, but that was the time when they actually made entry into the actual camp itself. Going in, conducting those arrests. Right now, it is really quiet. What you're seeing, I don't know if you can see in the background there, but a line of LAPD officers just showed up along with private security for the university here and essentially did a complete sweep. There were a few protesters that were still milling about. There was a standoff of sorts early this morning between the CHP and protesters on that perimeter. Then the CHP just left, but now the officers are back. They're clearing that camp. The university tells us that this is the beginning of the cleanup process after a very, very tense several days here, Jake.
Yes, and that's usually, I should note, a beautiful, spotless campus in Los Angeles, not what it looks like right there.